The realtor's smile had a practiced sympathy to it, as if she'd shown the house to dozens of reluctant heirs before me. "It's been in your family for generations," she said, waving a perfectly manicured hand at the window, at the tangle of ivy clawing up grey, old bricks. "A little love and attention, and you'll see its charm." Charm. That was one word for it. Another was neglect. The front steps sagged under my weight, the porch swing groaned hideously in the wind, and every window stared out at the overgrown lawn like a gaping black eye. "How long since anyone lived here?" I asked, trailing my fingers over the warped banister. She pursed her lips. "Your Great-Aunt Vera was the last. She passed 5 years ago, kept to herself, mostly." The house creaked around us as if in complaint. "Will you be moving in?" I looked around. I had nowhere else. My mother's death had left me rootless, a small inheritance, no other living relatives. Maybe the house would be my anchor. Or my cage. Dust and silence swallowed me that first night. I made up a bed in one of the upstairs rooms. It seemed less oppressive up there, removed from the damp stink that clung to the lower floors. I dreamed of nothing, or rather, if I dreamed at all, I had no memory of images, only a chill that stayed with me when I woke up in the morning. The house was colder than it should have been for September. I adjusted the thermostat. The needle barely moved. The radiators burped and hissed, but warmth never followed. Downstairs, I discovered a locked door off the dining room, ornate, with cracked paint and a heavy old brass key hanging on a nail above it. Not a closet or pantry. The old blueprint said nothing about a fourth room on the lower floor. Irrationally, my skin prickled just standing in front of it. For the next few days, I tried to make the best of things. Cleaned out the kitchen, aired out the bedrooms, tackled the mildew in the bathroom. Each night, that same chill pressed against my skin as I lay in bed. Each night, I woke, certain I'd heard soft footsteps echoing from somewhere behind the locked door. On the fourth night, I was jolted awake by a series of thumps, irregular but insistent, coming from the ground floor. My heart seized. I crept downstairs, every step an agony of creaks and groans. There was nothing. Only the cold and the locked door, which seemed to glisten with dew in the moonlight streaming in. A darkness pooled at the base of the door. It vanished as soon as I switched on the hallway light. By midweek, the sound of footsteps became routine, a strange lullaby that woke me and then soothed me back to sleep. I convinced myself it was old pipes settling beams. The house was ancient. What else could I expect? And yet, every morning, I found myself staring at the heavy brass key above the strange door. On Thursday, I resolved to find out what lay beyond. I waited for morning, for sunlight, for company on the street outside. My fingers hesitated as I took the key down. It was cold, almost damp. It fit the lock with a satisfying click. The door groaned open on hinges that should have been rusted solid. Beyond, nothing but darkness and a draft of breath-cold air. I flicked on my phone's flashlight and descended a short flight of stairs. It was a basement, but not of any ordinary sort. The walls were lined with what looked like old insulation, torn in places to reveal wood so rotten I could push my thumb in. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and something sweeter, cloying. At the far end, a single window let in a sliver of greenish light. Underneath it stood an iron cot, ancient, rust-gnawed, with a thin mattress whose stains were impossible to identify. Chains hung from the ceiling, their shadows making nets on the wall. And in the corner, a pile of old notebooks, leather-bound, the edges curling with age. I shivered, not just with cold, but with a sudden, inexplicable dread. I spent hours that day reading. The entries began in 1873 by Marcus Beale, my great-great-grandfather. I hear them at night, scratching at the walls. I have tried every means, salt, iron, the prayers my own father taught me. Still they come, still they hunger. If you read this, know that to open the cold room is to invite them. I have done all I can to appease them, to keep them locked away. Perhaps you will be stronger. The entries grew darker, more desperate. Each generation, it seemed, had locked away something in the cold room at the heart of Broderick Hill. Vera, my great-aunt, had the last say. I was never meant to inherit this place. But after Henry went missing in '53, there was no one left. They come for me in the shadow hours, each night colder than the last. Do not open the door. Do not listen when they call your name. I close the diary, dread crawling up my spine. That night, I thought I heard my mother's voice. She'd been gone almost a year, but the words were unmistakable, echoing faintly from the cold room. Don't leave me here. Please, let me out. I pressed my ear to the floor above the room, holding my breath. Help me. 3 times, faint and desperate. My skin prickled as I realized the voices knew who I was. They knew what I had lost. The temperature in the house plummeted. Frost rimed the windows, dew formed inside the walls. Each night, the cold room seemed to grow, reaching, swallowing laughter, light, memory. My phone flickered, clock stopped. I began to see things, shapes reflected in the hallway mirror that vanished as soon as I turned. My mother's form, washed in moonlight, beckoning from the end of the corridor. The need to open the door became unbearable. One night, unable to resist, I descended again into the cold room. The chain swayed, as if disturbed. Behind the bed, in a shallow cavity, I found a bundle of rags. Wrapped in it, the remains of a child, tiny, mummified, with an old locket clutched to its sunken chest. The locket flipped open to reveal a photo, Marcus Beale, holding a red-haired little boy in his arms. A note, scrawled hastily beside it, "Forgive me." This was the only way to keep them out. Suddenly, I understood. The room had never been meant to contain monsters. It was a sacrificial tether, a way to bind what the family had unleashed. Every generation, a new offering. My dreams changed. Instead of voices calling for help, there were visions of the house as it had been. A farm, surrounded by fields, cattle lowing, children's laughter. My ancestors gathered in the cold room, faces gaunt with hunger. A pact with the dark, Marcus had written. For shelter, for prosperity. But the cost is never truly paid. If sacrifices were not made, the hunger in the walls would spill out, spread to the land, the neighbors, the town. That was why Vera had isolated herself, to shield others from the debt the family owed. I woke one morning to find my hands wrapped around the cold brass key, the metallic taste of fear thick in my throat. I had a choice, to flee, as Vera should have, or to pay the price and keep the darkness bound. But to do so would be to repeat the sins of my ancestors. The house demanded a soul. Without it, the shadows would not rest. For days I agonized, growing weaker, colder, my mind slipping. I began to see past tenants, neighbors, anyone who'd entered the house, how they'd gradually faded, become less themselves, their eyes glassy and hollow. Instead of offering someone, I made a plan. I gathered all the diaries, every record of the pact, and wrote a letter detailing everything I had uncovered. I made copies, mailed them to local historians, journalists, anyone who might investigate Broderick Hill. Then I gathered salt, iron, and every ounce of sunlight I could bring into the cold room, mirrors, lamps, candles. I cleansed the walls, chanted prayers I'd found in the oldest notebooks. I read the names of those lost aloud, giving them back their humanity. The walls trembled, the air crackled with fury. For a terrible hour, it felt as if the shadows would consume me. And then, quiet. It has been 3 months. The house stands empty, quarantined by police, as investigators sift through its secrets. I am renting a small apartment across town. I still hear the wind cry sometimes, carrying with it the taste of frost, but the worst seems over. I keep the locket on my desk, a reminder of what happens when secrets fester, when pacts are made in darkness. Some places remember. But sometimes, with truth and sunlight, memories can be rewritten.